This was a truly fascinating debate. And I don't share the view that democracy as such is threatened. Because actually it is, for me, the fact is that conflict is not a threat to democracy. Democracy is conflict. And it's only when you have a conflict that things are open and you can actually move your position. But for that actually to work, you need to be able to manage your conflict. You need to speak a language that other people can understand. You need to be able to sort of moderate yourself, not because of self-censorship, but because you really want to engage as a citizen, even when you have a very conflictual point of view. And I think that is one of the main debates when we're discussing how our digital society should work with the rest of society and how the different sides should interact. Because we're in times where we could reach for real change. Because as Alvin stated, democratic institutions have to some degree been echo chambers. And it's not just for minorities, it's for half of the population that democracy to some degree have been an echo chamber. Because it's only recently that women have started coming forward. Still in many parliamentary assemblies, in many governments, we see few women. So what we can do now is to reach out for a democracy where everyone truly has a voice. In my language, in Danish, we use the same word for votes and voice. And that is on purpose, because that is the point, that when you vote, you have a voice. You participate. And without that voice, obviously, there's no democratic state. And now we have new opportunities of making our voices heard. In the days before social media, I guess one of the most important jobs as a citizen was to go vote. But most people would also have a democratic life between elections. We would sit over a cup of coffee or a beer and talk about how government didn't work. We would engage. And these discussions very often stayed private. And between elections, very often politicians would lead our democratic culture. They would write things in the papers, they would discuss among the others. This is what has changed now. Digitization, social media has really truly changed it. And this about echo chambers, as said, I think in the digital age, just as well as before and before and before, to some degree we feel comfortable with people who to some degree think the same things as we do ourselves. We may forgive the odd uncle over Christmas lunch, but actually we don't really want sort of the hardcore discussion. We want to be comfortable. And this is why the truly digital opposition revolution is the just opposite. The debates that we have over Twitter and over Facebook, well, they are truly different, because now they are networked. They are, in their way, part of a political debate, and as a matter of principle, anyone can take place. So in that respect, I find that our democracy is strengthened. It's enriched. It becomes better when more people can participate. Because otherwise, what kind of democracy do we have? Groups who were once marginalized can take pay. Groups and people who felt isolated, forgotten, not respected can be part. Take the very good example of Jodie Cantor and Megan Twohey for the New York Times. They provided the spark that launched Me Too. But it was social media that turned the stories into a movement, that made it powerful, that made it a change agent. And I think that is one of the amazing things that has happened. Now it's not about your position. It's not about being invited in to a panel. It's about the story that you have to tell. If that is strong and influential, well, it will be influential. But it's also obvious in this debate, this is a very complex affair, digitization. Because the technology that gives us more control of our own lives, well, the risk is also that it gives other people a completely different access to control our lives as well. It's a two-way street. So the challenge is, of course, that we make sure that we really listen to one another. And here language is indeed part of the key. What you hear more and more often these days is that women actually refrain from seeking public office because of the digital harassment. Because if you state an opinion, plain, straightforward, there's a very high risk that the first comment will be that you're a slut. And that the next comment will be of the same nature. So why put yourself out there if there's no language actually to have a real debate, to mitigate conflict? So this is why it is so important how we deal with this. And the very openness makes it very difficult not only for this very hostile language to spread, but also for very hostile ideas to spread. And of course one can discuss what is truth, but to some degree we do know that there are things that are true and things that are not true. And that is being established over and over and over again by journalists who dig through things and see what is right and what is wrong. And I was thinking about it when we were discussing it here. Well, social media allows for new oxygen in our bloodstream. But it also allows, if poison has entered our system, for that poison to be in the entire system. And that's the challenge. Because just as well as the digitization open up the debates, and any voice in principle can be heard, it undermines sort of the control of what we are being presented for. When I was a child and we were watching the news at night, the presenter, the anchor, would always say by the end of the show, "This was what we chose to show you tonight." To make it very literal, that there was a world of other stories that they could have told us as well. And here very often we think of it as a sign or a seal of approval that someone we know have forwarded a story to us. But we have no idea what was the initial source of that story that is being forwarded to us. And that creates opportunities of misuse of power. Because people who are scrupulous enough, they can make very good use of it. They can undermine the trust in the only thing that really can tackle the problems of our society, and that system is democracy. Others turns parents' worries about their children's health against them. The lies about vaccines that are spread in our society can actually kill the people who were exposed to it. So we have this double-sided nature. And the next thing is, of course, to figure out, well, how to deal with things that are this complex. Because not only do we have the debates about, is it exercising censorship if some things are not found? Again, I come from a country, we were the first to liberalize pornography. So we have had a very intense debate about nipples. Whether or not a book cover with a bare pair of breasts can be shown on Facebook. They cannot. So there is some sides where something that is absolutely fine to say this cannot be shown. And then we have a very heated debate at the same time about hate speech and violence and excitement to terrorism that can still exist at the same time. So I find that we have at least two things to figure out. One is, of course, the most obvious about language. How do we express ourselves so that we show that we do listen to other people and we want them to listen to us, not just to be afraid of us? And the second thing, as it was also said in the panel, with great powers comes great responsibility. How to make sure that what we are exposed to is transparent and that we as citizens actually can see what is that we're exposed to. Because as was also said in the panel here, we want to show you more of what you like. And people should come and they should spend more time. That is actually quite the opposite of the model of one of our hosts today. Because as we also heard this morning, the New York Times, they invest in journalists so that you get a curated news. And I tend to like that because it makes me know quite a lot about football. Because in my morning paper, I can't sort of avoid the sports pages. I really have no interest. I'm sorry. But even though I have no interest, I will still know what are sort of the main. And you know, the majority of people, they see this in the complete opposite way. And the other thing is also, which is also a very distinct difference, is the ambition to make people pay in real cash for what they see. So what we have had today are these two different models. You pay, you get quality for which we take the responsibility, or we want to show you more of what you like, and you should just come and spend more time. Because that also suggests to you the value of your time, since you don't have to put down the cash. And that is the debate we'll have to have at the same time when we discuss the language and the transparency and the responsibility of those who forward things to us. It is how those things are influenced by the business models that are carrying the news and the debates that are vital to our democracy. These are exciting times because our democratic values, they are key to who we are. And it's obvious that our societies need to change. They need to be gender balanced. They need to be more equal. They need to be more open. We have a lot of things to do. We need to fight climate change. We want to get in control of technology so that it serves humans. We have a lot of things to do. And in doing that, the most important tool is democracy. So this is not about social media or technology being an enemy to democracy. It is to see how can we make best use of technology to enhance our democracy, to be able to deal with challenges that we should have dealt with a long time ago. Because it's not a new thing that women are half the population. It's kind of how it used to be. It's not a new thing that our planet is threatened and that the weather will get wilder and wilder and wilder. It's long overdue. And it's not a new thing that technology changes our societies. So the good thing is that we are here and everywhere else to discuss how to deal with it, to be able, at long last, to deal with the things in our societies that we should have dealt with a long time ago. There is a meeting in Copenhagen going on right now, actually, about climate change and the biggest cities in the world. And Al Gore, he spoke. And he said a thing that I find very inspiring, which is that the thing about political will, it is that it's a renewable resource. So if we can agree to use this renewable resource of political will, then obviously we can turn social media and technology into the necessary means to enrich our democracy, to solve long overdue problems of inequality and lack of gender balance and a planet that is threatened. Thank you very much.